I realize it's been over a year since my last video on this channel. I have been hard at work on a feature that I'm very excited about, customizable non-player characters. I've worked out a system where if a given brony has an idea for an enemy or a boss or a friendly NPC, that brony can put together that enemy or boss or NPC with this system doing or saying all the things that brony imagined, looking just how that brony imagined, all without writing a single line of code. I'm aiming for an if you can dream it, you can do it feel for the custom NPC system. Now the reason it took a year to put together was because I needed to add a lot of controls to the whole system in order to make it versatile enough so that it had an if you can dream it, you can do it vibe. In this video, I'm going to give a basic overview of the concepts behind the custom NPC system and how it works, but I won't go in depth in this video. There are so many things to go over that one video is not going to be enough to cover all the details, but this video will give you a starting point for how to understand it all. First of all, once this thing loads, I think I should give you a look at how the palette has changed on the enemies and custom NPCs layer. There's a new icon on this layer. It's got a robot with a wrench above it. This is the new custom NPC icon. I've also changed the edit icon so that it has both that robot and some of the speaker NPC logo on it. If you want to modify a speaker NPC, you still click on this icon. Now to dive into this. You'll notice that when I click on the new custom NPC icon, there actually aren't that many controls. There are controls for the NPC's name and the faceplate for the dialogue, but for the most part, you get a blank slate here. That's because the complexity is hidden inside behaviors. Behaviors are the bread and butter of the custom NPC system. They're the thing that allows for so much versatility. Behaviors are essentially modes for the custom NPC, and a given NPC can have one or more behaviors attached to it. Each behavior has its own set of animations, its own set of rules for how the NPC moves around, and each behavior can have its own dialogue and/or dialogue trees. Dialogue trees are one of the big things that I've added this release. Also, each behavior can have its own rules for switching to other behaviors. I'll give you a brief overview of the controls and how they work. I'll create a new behavior to start all this off. All right. The controls needed to be split into 4 separate tabs, and there's going to be another tab on its way too. The first tab is the General tab. There are movement controls up here in the upper left corner. There are a bunch of movement rules here. There's movement rules that say it bounces. You can have it bounce towards the player. You can have the NPC simply move forward. You can have it move forward and turn at cliffs like Red Koopas from Super Mario. You can have it move towards the player, and you can also have it either flying or just staying on the ground. You can also have it move to a set point. Now, some of the things, like the point to which you move and that kind of thing, are stuff that you set while you're placing an NPC onto the canvas. So if you don't see a control in here that your brain is telling you that should really be there, don't worry. It's probably a part of the canvas requirements, and I'll talk about canvas requirements in a later video. On the right-hand side of the General tab, we have the behavior switch rules. This tells it when to change from one behavior to another behavior or when to despawn. There is a lot of stuff in here. Getting crushed by moving platforms is one way to move to another behavior or to despawn. Getting close enough to the player is another time when the NPC can switch to another behavior. As soon as the NPC enters a given area, again, that's a canvas requirement. Pretty much every time you switch to another behavior, despawning is an option. It can be done either permanently or until the player re-enters the room that the NPC has been placed in. Now, there's also ways in the dialogue system you can switch to another behavior, but when it comes to combat or movement, this is your go-to place to switch to another behavior. The graphics tab is here, and it's a lot like the graphics tab for speaker NPCs. It's got the same compass rose panel right here, It's got the same control here for deciding which animation we're currently editing, but there are a lot more options for what animations are going to be available. You can have up to 17. This is the maximum number. You click on each one of these, it says north, northeast here, northeast, northeast, southwest. Basically, I've used the points of the compass to decide what animations there's going to be and what we're going to call them. Pretty much in each case, you have the option of excluding or including the neutral animation. Like here's one with just 8. And as you can see, these points are blacked out. You can just have the cardinal directions, just north, south, east, and west. You can include neutral or exclude neutral. You can have it just going left or to the right, or you can have just the one animation, the one neutral animation. Now, the reason that I had this kind of ridiculous looking control for speaker NPCs was because I originally designed this for custom NPCs. One thing that you may have noticed is that there isn't a big viewport that lets you see your NPC in action yet. That viewport does exist, but it's on the Hitboxes tab, and you're going to need it. In order to test this out, I'm going to have to pick an animation. I'm just going to pick something really basic. I'll just pick this number 1 here, set the background to lime so that it's basically a blue square with a number 1 cookie cuttered out of it. So here it is. The Hitboxes tab allows you to set hitboxes for 4 different things. This is the hitbox that controls whether it has collision detection with walls or ceilings or the floor, and it actually shows you the floor right here. Obviously I've underestimated here, maybe by about 5 no. Let me try 48. That looks closer. See, in a y offset -1. Alright, that seems to bring it exactly to specifications, and let me just widen this out to 48, and there you have it. As you can see, the hitbox changes color a little bit as it goes, so that helps you see it. Another hitbox is whether it damages the player on contact. I'll just make this 60 by 60. You can create your own hitbox dissonance. This one is a black and red hitbox. You can also specify the amount of damage on contact. Also, you can set up an NPC so that it can hurt the player without being able to take damage itself. Actually, the system for how to take damage is a little complicated. I'll be talking about it in another video. This hitbox is actually yellow. It goes from white to yellow. Doesn't show up all that well against this blue outline, but you get the idea. And the last one is interaction with the player. These hitboxes, and I guess hitbox is a pretty loose term here. Basically, if the player character is standing on top of this hitbox while the user presses the enter key while they're playing the game, that will initiate dialogue with this NPC. And you can set it up so that you can stand on either side of the NPC and still talk to them. The hitboxes here are green, fading to white. I think I should make it a little further out here. There we go. So those are the hitboxes. Finally, there's the dialogue tab. Once again, a lot like the main editor panel back here, there aren't that many controls here. I've had the OK and cancel buttons off the bottom of the screen this whole time. Wow. Anyways, again, this is pretty much a blank slate until you either add a dialogue chain or a dialogue choice. The dialogue choice is the set of options the player can choose between, and they're how the dialogue tree system works. A dialogue chain looks a lot like dialogues from the speaker NPC system. Now, when you're creating these dialogues, you can color code them just so that it's easy to tell them apart at a glance. You don't have to, but there they are. You click on Show here, And once again, you can test out, you can type dialogue, and you can preview the dialogue. You can set the speaker, you can create an auto new line system. There's some formatting and special commands here. But there is one thing that's different. Dialogue commands. These are things that happen as soon as this dialogue chain is finished. There are a few different commands. This is essentially scripting. You can script it so that at the end of some dialogue, you can say this NPC is now going to despawn. That would be perfect for having an NPC that is going to join your party. I don't have unlock playable character commands here yet. I'm hoping for that later. You can have it create a checkpoint. You can say, okay, the game is over now. You've won now that you've gotten to this dialogue, so win level. I added the ability to start the rain and stop the rain. There's a couple more. You can have a dialogue command that says as soon as this dialogue is done, switch to this behavior. Like you can be talking to a friendly NPC and say, I want to fight you, and then he'll say, okay, and then you switch from this friendly behavior to a behavior where it has damaging hitboxes, a weak point hitbox, etc., where you can actually fight it. You also have jump to dialogue as a possible dialogue command. You can jump from the end of a dialogue chain to a dialogue choice so that you have branching dialogue again, or you can jump to another dialogue chain just because you've already written that one and you don't want to have to write it again. There's all kinds of commands like that. You can click show and jump to a different dialogue chain. I'll just say no here. It's dialogue branch. You can add one or more dialogue options. Once again, it's like a blank slate. And yeah, I'll be getting more into this in another video. Long term, I'd like to add another tab up here called Techniques. That would be things like projectile attacks, the ability to spawn other NPCs, and special animations. So that's the overview of the custom NPC system. In order to go in depth, I think I should show how this system works in action. I'll be using this editor to create a few NPCs and a few enemies to show you in general how this works in the next few videos.